Hey everyone, welcome back to Path to Play. It's Valentina.
And Rory.
Today we're going to be talking to our fellow athletes out there who are considering playing college soccer. Before we dive in, I want to start our episode with memory of the day. So, Rory, why don't you tell us what is your most unfortunate memory from your recruiting process through high school for college soccer?
Yeah, I do have a pretty unfortunate one. So I had basically gotten to the stage where I had kind of whittled it down to just my three favorite colleges. I went on a visit to one of them. The visit went great. Everyone was awesome. I got back and I was explaining that to the coaches, telling them, "Hey, I really liked it. Like, kind of what would next steps look like?" And then they were also very excited, but then right after that, they said, "Hey, we can't move forward right now. We're having some issues at the school. We'll let you know how that progresses." And about a week later, they said, "We've had an issue with the accounting and the athletics department, and we need to cut three programs." And our program was one of the ones that got cut. So men's soccer got cut. That school that I was pretty sure I wanted to go to was just completely off the table.
No, that is very, very unfortunate and completely out of your control. How did you feel? Were you devastated?
I was definitely pretty devastated. I think after putting in a lot of commitment and kind of building up an emotional connection to the coaches, I would say, and like a
Mm.
good relationship for sure. Um, Having that all just kind of like be gone in this like a split second was definitely pretty tough to deal with.
Well, that is super unlucky, but you know what they say, everything happens for a reason,
Yep,
and
yep.
things ended up working out very well for you in the long run.
Yeah, they did. Thankfully, I kind of had enough time to pivot and had kept enough options open, but definitely was not fun at all.
Well, I'm glad that you can share with our fellow Path to Play listeners that things can take a turn
Yep.
and things will end up working out for themselves as things usually do. So, we know it's an overwhelming time right now for many of you if you're considering college soccer, and we hear you and we're here to give you a little bit of our perspective from our experiences. So, I think some of the things that are happening around this time, and I think that continue to happen now that I look back on it, is there's a lot of hype around getting recruited. There's a lot of reels on social media, pictures and photos of people that
Mhm.
are getting recruited, that are posting, that are just talking about their timelines and honestly sort of hyping timelines up and pushing players to follow a certain framework when I think really there is not a framework.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the trendy, cool thing to do, like post the commitment video and picture and get all the likes and everything. But I think behind all of that, there's a lot going on, and the journey for everyone is extremely unique.
Yes, and I think that that is our big message for today. Right from the start, here we're going to tell you it's going to look different for everyone. And the reality is that the decision needs to end up being ultimately for what you want, needs to be a deliberate choice of I have set my goals from the start. I've self-reflected, I've done thinking, I've reached out to people who I can trust and that support me so that I know I'm making the correct decision on what school I want to go to, what level I want to play, do I even want to play? Making sure that that decision meets your goals for how you want your experience to be.
Yeah, and the decision and the questions you ask yourself are so important because there are so many levels and because there are so many different ways that your recruiting process can go. And if you decide not to play, that would also alter the process so heavily. So, in this episode, we kind of want to talk through what we did and what happened to us during our years of high school and just kind of give you an overall framework of what you guys can ask yourself and think about in this time because there's obviously so much going on.
Yes. And I will say, obviously, this conversation will be geared towards people who are considering playing in college. If that's not something that you want to do, we're going to have a full episode on that as well. Even if you're just unsure or if you're trying to change tracks, we'll definitely do a conversation on that too. But the focus point today is for those who are thinking of playing in college. So, now that we've established all of that, the main message here is there's no right way to do it. And we just want to really emphasize that.
Yeah, there's no way to do it. There's only your way of how you're going to do it. So, starting off with freshman year, start of high school, kind of give us what happened to you during that very early year.
I think freshman year was an introduction to what the rest of my high school career was going to look like. And it think a few things that I remember off the top of my head are that we started setting up brochures essentially to market yourself as a player, started attending more important showcases, which are big tournaments where coaches come up. You start to get the template to email the coaches. So all these things are starting to happen that can feel very exciting and a little bit of, you know, feeling nervous along the way and feeling a little bit overwhelmed as you're kicking off a little bit more of the intense part of your career.
Interesting because that's not really what my freshman year looked like. I think that's definitely a good kind of intro, as you said, to the whole world of recruiting because you're kind of learning what it looks like. And if it kind of gives you a good sense of like, this is something I like and something I want to commit to. But for me, I was nowhere near that. I don't think I went to a single showcase my freshman year. I was on the B team at my club, so I definitely wasn't prime target for any colleges at that time, but no showcases. Don't think I emailed a single coach. Definitely didn't go to any sort of camps or anything like that. So very different timelines. But I think yours is definitely a great setup.
Yeah, it's a good way to start getting exposure a little bit early if that's what you're looking for. But I think the important thing here is that you're still early on. Just focus on enjoying the game.
Hmm.
Focus on staying strong on the field, off the field, and most importantly, being patient. So, I think even at this stage, especially for women, there's going to be people that are going to commit, and it doesn't have to necessarily force you into following that same timeline or put pressure on you on finding the same path because it's all, like we said, it's all about finding what works for you and what your aspirations are.
Exactly. So you start to get a little bit of the introduction to what college recruitment's going to be like. Start going to some showcases. Then what does sophomore year look like for you?
I think sophomore year is definitely going from 0 to, I will say, maybe 85. You're very much, or at least in my experience, I was going to camps more, whether that be identification camps or one day camps. And these are designed specifically to get you direct exposure to a specific school, plus any other coaches that attend those. I think sophomore year is also a time where you continue to reach out to coaches where you still can't hear a direct response, but you're getting a little bit more clear on what schools you want to go to or you're considering. And I think just recognizing a little bit more clearly, perhaps your academic goals, your athletic goals, and the type of program that might be a good fit for you if that's what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty similar experience there. I want to say I went to probably two, maybe three showcases sophomore year.
Mhm.
I went to an ID camp, so I think stuff definitely started ramping up. Started being told by my club, hey, like maybe you should start reaching out to colleges, and you start kind of playing better players and feeling like, okay, maybe I could take the next step. I totally agree with that.
I think it's a great time to stay curious. Don't
Yep.
be afraid to reach out to ask questions, even if it feels silly. Just reach out to people that you know will have good advice. And also, a great time to figure out whether your coach is on your side of the court as well. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is making sure that they're being transparent with you on their goals for you and how they're prioritizing your goals, because ultimately that's what's most important. You don't want to be spending and wasting any time and or money on someone who might not be supporting you or have your best interests in mind. For example, if you're seeing that they're pipelining players to a connection or a school that might not be your best fit, that might be a good time to reflect on that. Or, I don't know, another example I can think of is trying to place players as quickly as possible when maybe that's not your goal, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think your coach and the club that you're at definitely have a lot of power, and they can either use that to help you or they can use that to try and push you in a certain direction that's maybe not right for you
Hmm.
or just like not really help you at all.
Right. Because whatever they might have in mind or the club might have in mind, is not always going to be what you want. So I think it's just also worth considering at this point whether they're going to be a good support system for you as you continue to consider your recruiting path forward or the types of schools that you're looking at. So definitely a good time to reconsider or just reflect on where you are and what your environment is on the at the club level.
Yeah, and I mean, you can a good coach can really help take you to the next level and have having that good word out for you can just be so helpful. All right, so then moving on to junior year, what changed and what kind of got more aggressive and intense?
Junior year, I remember before I even started junior year, everyone was telling me that junior year was such a intense and overwhelming and stressful year. And while there are many other stressful things in life later on that will be worse than that, at the time, it certainly does feel like
Mhm.
a very stressful time, especially if you're an athlete, especially if you're an athlete who's thinking about playing at the collegiate level. So I think junior year, that's when people are making decisions that can get into your head a little bit. It can build pressure. You're continuing to attend all of these showcases, which are those big tournaments where coaches are showing up specifically to watch you. You can connect with coaches more directly because that rule is done. So junior year definitely looked a lot like chaotic back and forth, lots of traveling, lots of soccer, lots of school items too, because at the school level, you're also thinking about, well, what am I going to do for college if I am thinking about college? I think there's just a lot going on. And I think there's a lot of intentional effort at this point of figuring out whether or not this sport is something that you want to continue to pursue and what steps you're taking to achieve the goals of I want to play Division 1, I want to play Division 2, I want to play Division 3 and so on and so forth. Or maybe you're thinking at the level of I'm thinking about playing in a program that places more importance on school rather than the athletics, so I don't really mind the smaller school, things like that.
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of the same. A lot playing games where coaches were there, and so you're thinking about that, but then you also are making sure that you're doing well in school, and then start thinking that this coach likes me. Do I want to go to that school? Is that an area that I would want to live in? Because that's
Mhm.
obviously important. Does the coach seem nice? What are their academics? So then there's just like lots of thinking, and for a 16, 17-year-old, that does feel like the most crazy time of your life for sure.
Yeah, and I think at this time, it's just a good period to make sure that you're talking again to the right resources and what I like to call your board of directors, which is essentially a group of people that you trust that are going to give you different perspectives. So, for example, my dad is probably going to give me one piece of advice that is going to look completely different than what my best friend would advise me. And I think all are very important perspectives to take into consideration because one's going to be a cheerleader, one's going to be more of a realistic, logical person. And it's just a good way to make sure that you're making the right decision for your goals that hopefully you've had time to reflect on and to really ground yourself and think, what are the deliberate steps that I'm going to take to help support me in the long run? Doesn't have to be a clear linear path forward because it'll never look like that. But as long as you're taking directional steps that are intentional, that align with your values and what you want your college experience to be, I think that that'll go a very long way as opposed to making sillier decisions that might be based off so and so did this, so I'm going to do it. This person is already committed, so I'm going to commit now without thinking of the school and the program, etc.
I really like that, and I think I didn't intentionally do that when I was in that junior year, but I think
Oh, me either.
I was I was doing that because I was talking with my coach and I was talking with my
Yes.
parents, and I wasn't thinking like, "Hey, I need all these people's opinions." I was just luckily surrounded by good people who wanted to help me out. And that's going back to what we said about the coach. My coach in high school during my junior year was actually a college coach at a D2 school in Seattle. And so that's just like great advice from him. And so I think I subconsciously, or I guess accidentally, even maybe surrounded myself with good people and had a good board of directors.
Yes. And guys, disclaimer, we were not wise in the
No.
not that we're wise now, but we were certainly not wise at this stage at all. I'm saying this now that I look back and I think, oh, I was really lost in the heat of it all in that moment. And now I know what would have helped me. I think ultimately things really worked out for us and these are just the lessons learned that could have maybe led to a different outcome or
Right.
not, or I think they're just experience-based lessons that now we want to be able to share with others who might not be thinking as clearly because we acknowledge it's really hard to think at this point in your life and with all of this pressure and things going on to think clearly about what you want truly for yourself. So we were definitely not taking our own advice at this point.
Yeah, no, we weren't. And it is all experience based. So, whatever experience we can help you with, so you don't have to go through as many kind of poor decisions that we probably made, we want to give those to you guys.
Yes, but any lesson learned is a good
Very
lesson.
true. Very true. Okay, so junior year is crazy. There's a lot going on. A lot of people commit, a lot of people make decisions, but not everyone does. So kind of what does senior year look like and what is some good advice for people in that time frame?
Yeah. So personally, by senior year, I was verbally committed, which is certainly a reassuring thing to have done if you're someone that's trying to play division 1 level. I think a lot of the times and people might not tell you this, but a lot of the times division 1 schools have a cap to how many players they can recruit for each graduating class because they want to grab talent early on because that's just how division 1 schools compete, right? I mean, the bigger schools
Right.
recruit so early.
Yeah, I think a lot of the big powerhouses will do a lot of early recruiting because obviously they're competing for the best players in the country who those tend to be the people who commit the earliest. So, I also committed kind of right for the start of my senior year, But I know a bunch of guys on my team who hadn't committed by then and ended up committing early
Yeah.
on in their senior year, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
that all went well. And every level kinda has a different recruiting phase. We're speaking to Division 1, but a l Division 2 and 3 traditionally are much later on
For sure.
in the career, so I think senior year is definitely a very common time. And if you don't get the offer you want or it doesn't really go that way, there's always things like JUCO, which are great options and always have later spots open, so
And
there's really no need to force, no need to rush.
JUCO, for those who don't know, is junior college,
Correct.
which is in the NAIA league. So yes, every option is a great option. All this to say, there is a level for absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
So if you're not committed or where you want to be as far as exposure by your senior year, fear not. There is a place for you out there. I can guarantee you that. There are so many teams out there that need players that would absolutely love numbers.
And your first, destination that you land in is does not have to be the last.
No.
If you, for whatever reason, didn't get the exposure that you were hoping for, or you're a late bloomer, or whatever the reason, and you go and have a great year, you can totally move. And that doesn't have to be moving up, that can be moving sideways. That could be moving to a location that you want to be at more, or
Yes.
somewhere with a coach that's nice or a better team. That's so possible. I had so many people transfer into my school from D1s, D2s, JUCOs, just all over the place.
Yes. And regardless of what stage you're at, in specifically in your senior year, this is a good time to reflect on your whole high school career, and your whole club career if you'd like as well. But your whole high school career in a nutshell. If you've made your decision, you can take the time to just make sure that you're sure of it. If you haven't made your decision, it's a good time to realign your goals. Make sure that you're still making those deliberate decisions that are taking you generally in the right direction, and that you have that support system that's going to advise you realistically, logically, emotionally, all the different aspects. If you're still unsure if you'd like to take a whole different turn at this point in your senior year, that is so totally fine as well. The world will not fall apart, people's lives will go on. Use this time to self reflect one final time to be sure of your next steps forward.
So we threw a lot of information at you guys today, but we want to leave a few ideas with you to take home and think about for the rest of the day. Going D1 does not prove anything. There's a timeline for you, and you do not need to focus on anyone else's timeline. And also, if you do feel like you want to play in college, there will be a level for you and there will be a place that wants you to be there and you'll be able to thrive in.
Yeah, ultimately, the biggest takeaway is that you define what your success looks like. We've touched on it before. There's going to be a lot of noise throughout your journey, whatever that might be, and easier said than done, but it is important to focus on your aspirations, your goals, and the things that will benefit you the most. So continue on with your own path forward. Find your specific fit that feels good. And again, goal setting is key to find what your own success will look like. And that is usually what will be best for you in the long run. So, like Rory said, we definitely gave a lot of information here, and there's a lot more to say, but we will be doing deep dives for each specific stage, breaking it up relatively how we broke it up today. So, kind of by your grade level, if that makes sense. And we'll provide those episodes in future launches so that you guys have a little bit more detail to follow here. But hopefully, this was helpful. I know that these conversations would have been really helpful, at least for me to have in my own journey.
Yeah, same here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.
Yes. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you guys soon.